We're trying to get this guy on since he announced. When did you announce this is Duncan Hunter, Congressman from California?
Formally announced January 25th.
Okay, good.
Yeah, Phil.
Well, we're glad to have you on.
Well, great to be with you.
Worth the wait.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, your issue, this is one of your primary issues, is it not?
Listen, Phil, I've come from San Diego, and I built the border fence in San Diego. That's that double fence with a Border Patrol road in between that we built between San Diego and Tijuana.
Right.
And we had the number one smugglers corridor in America there. That's where most of the people were smuggled illegally into this country, and most of the narcotics that was smuggled into this country came through that corridor between San Diego, California, and Tijuana, Mexico, right there on the coast. When I built the double fence there, and I did that in 1994 with a Border Patrol road in between, we knocked back the smuggling of people and narcotics by more than 90%, and we dropped the crime rate in the city of San Diego by FBI statistic by 53%.
Wow.
And we eliminated all the drive-through drug stuff, and if you see my fence, it's not that scraggly little fence you see on CNN with people climbing over it.
Right.
It's a big fence, 15 feet high. In fact, two fences with the road in between. If anybody can climb our fence, we sign them up for the Olympics immediately.
Well, that's the insane thing is I heard people saying, well, one of the lawyers down there says, look, these people, if you build a fence, they'll just go around it. Well, not if there's no around it to go. I mean, if we put this fence all the way across the border, there would be no way to get around it.
Exactly. And, Phil, that's why I wrote the language that the fence provisions that were in the Homeland Security bill of this last year, I wrote that language that now extends the border fence 854 miles across the smugglers' routes of Arizona, New Mexico, and Texas.
Mm-hmm.
And the Senate passed it overwhelmingly, 80-19. The House passed it overwhelmingly. The President signed it. It's a law, and we got $1.2 billion cash on hand sitting at Homeland Security right now, available to build the fence. So the American people have victory in hand. We simply have to get the Department of Homeland Security to build the fence.
Well, and how likely is that to happen?
Well, they've started it, but they're slow. I called them up the other day. I said, how much you got done so far? Out of 854 miles, they've got the first 2 miles done.
Woohoo!
So this is my pledge and commitment. I'm running for president.
Right.
If I'm elected, I will finish the border fence in 6 months. Now, it's very simple to do. You simply put the first contractor on mile 1 to mile 2,
right.
The second one mile 2 to mile 3, and on down the line, and you have them build it concurrently.
So this issue, you have been, because you're down in San Diego, you've been politically attuned to this for many years. It's now out in the hinterland. It's everywhere. I mean, we're out of Nashville, Tennessee, and, of course, we have a huge illegal alien problem. In North Carolina, where I came from, they have a huge illegal alien problem, and it's only getting worse.
That's true, and it's also now it's a national security issue. And one reason I've taken put so much attention to this is I've been chairman of the Armed Services Committee in Congress for 4 years, and I've looked at the fact that in 2005, we captured 155,000 people coming across the border from Mexico who were not citizens of Mexico. They came from virtually every country in the world. 1,100 of them came from communist China, and a few of them came from Iran and North Korea. So everybody in the world with a TV set now understands the way you get into America illegally.
Go to Mexico
You
first.
go to Mexico and you walk across. You can't. In the old days, they could get in through the airports. The airports are closed down now. Since 9/11, we've got those closed down to illegal travel. So the way you get in is you go to Mexico and you walk across. At some point, you're going to have folks that intend to really harm Americans.
Well, that's what I want to get to next. I mean, what is to stop a terrorist from coming over? And we know from some reports that these terrorists have learned Spanish and have commingled with the illegal aliens so that they're not detected. So they're probably already here.
It's very easy. You figure that the same smuggler who takes $10,000 from a drug dealer to move cocaine across the border is not going to have any pang of conscience that's going to keep him from taking money from a terrorist to move people or bad stuff across the border. And in fact, when we got the go-ahead to build the border fence in San Diego, we had the Secretary of the Navy write a letter. He wrote a letter saying, hey, you got the biggest Navy base in the world a few miles to the north. Let's plug that hole in the fence. There's a national security component to this. And incidentally, I see my great friend Sam Johnson of Texas over here. great POW who gave the closing speech in our last vote on the Iraq bill. How you doing, Sam?
You letting the next president talk to you?
After you will sit down and talk.
See, Sam called me the next president. I call that a formal endorsement.
So are you officially in, sir? You officially in his campaign now?
No, I don't have anybody.
Yeah.
Sam's holding off till
we want you on the record. We want you on the record. So let's talk. We're talking with Congressman Duncan Hunter, by the way, who's running for president. And this is no insult, but they got you as you're considered a second-tier candidate with Tom Tancredo and some others. How do you become a first-tier candidate in this race but you've got Giuliani, who's not going to do anything about the borders. You got John McCain, who clearly is not going to do anything about the borders. Mitt Romney, we don't know. How do you propel yourself with this issue into the top tier?
What you got to do, you just have to work really hard, and you have to do what I'm doing right now. Is you got to move a lot of electrons around this country because you got millions of people to talk to, and we just did the straw poll in California, incidentally, in the California Republican Assembly, which is our big conservative group in California. I tied for second. Behind Fred Thompson, interestingly.
Well, that was going to be my next question.
But ahead of McCain and Giuliani, and in the straw poll in Spartanburg that we did, came in second place, but ahead of Mitt Romney. So we are moving ahead.
If you can be everybody's second choice, you'll be number one.
Listen, and we won the Anderson County straw poll, beating everybody 2-1 in South Carolina.
All right, well,
so we've won a few.
Well, let me ask you about this. I mean, because they're looking for a true conservative, which you're conservative, but they're looking for a true conservative who people think can win. And I don't think you've convinced everybody that you can win yet. So what does a Fred Thompson jumping in the race do for you?
Well, I don't know, and it's hard to figure the math on all these various combinations. But let me tell you, I've been the chairman of the Armed Services Committee for 4 years. I've had a budget of over $500 billion. I know nuclear weapons. I know strategic systems. I know the threats of Iran, North Korea, China's emergence as a new superpower. I've worn the uniform of the United States. Didn't do anything special in Vietnam, but I did show up with the 173rd Airborne. So I have an interest in this country, and I've got a love for this country, and I think I understand the issues. And I'm also the only guy that's actually done anything about the border, which is build a border fence. And, I wrote that fence law that was passed by the House and the Senate and signed by the President. I can get things done. So I think I can lead America. And so I haven't got $20 million, which some of the other guys have got. They've got a few shekels, I'll admit that.
Right.
But on the other hand, we're going to have debates, and I think that I'll do okay.
Well, the other issue we were talking about was China, which I don't think a lot of these people that are running understand that. How my belief is that we're doing with China like we did with Japan before World War II. We're giving them the material and the wealth to kick us in the butt.
Bingo. China is cheating on trade. They're devaluing their currency 40%. They're taking hundreds of billions of dollars a year more from us than we're getting from them. Mm-hmm. And here's what they bought. They've bought 4 Sovereignty-class missile destroyers from the Russians that the Russians designed to kill American aircraft carriers. They've got a high-speed missile that maneuvers at the end, very hard for us to defend against. They're buying high-end tactical aircraft. They've got a lot of submarines under construction, and now they've got nuclear attack submarines under construction. The Chinese are becoming a military superpower, and the sad thing is, and you hit the nail on the head, they're doing it with our money.
Right.
And that's really a tragedy. And we had this arsenal of democracy in World War II, this great industrial system that we said in 1940 we're going to turn to making war equipment. Ford Motor Company turned out a bomber every 60 minutes in World War II. Chrysler made thousands of tanks. We made 36 billion yards of textiles. Today, that arsenal of democracy is moving offshore. You find it in places like Beijing and Paris and Berlin. And I don't know if all those people have the interest of the United States at heart when we have to turn our domestic capacity into war-making capability.
Duncan Hunter running for president. Congressman, go Hunter08.com. You can learn more about this gentleman. Quite impressive. We appreciate it, Congressman. Good to see you.
Many thanks. And your dad was a great member of Congress, too. Wanted to mention that.
Thank you very much. Yes. And
I'll tell you, he's a real hunter, too.
Yeah.
Now, that's true. They said Governor Romney had a little trouble with his hunting license, but if you elect me, you'll have a real hunter in the White House.
We'll be back. It is the Phil Valentine Show coming to you live. Hold their feet to the fire in Washington, D.C. It is the Phil Valentine Show on Westwood One. We'll be back right after this.